Hello and welcome to this feature of the week. In a typical sequential modeling approach, we estimate PK parameters with the first PK dataset, and in a second step, we use them for modeling PD data with a joint PKPD model. We import the PK parameters to the PD dataset by inserting one column for each PK parameter. Starting in Monolix 2023, it is now possible to do this directly in the interface without modifying the original PD dataset with the data formatting module. Let me show you how. Here I have opened a Monolix project with a PKPD dataset and a PK model with 4 parameters TLAG, Ka, V, and Cl that I have estimated on the PK data. In the result, I see the population estimates and also the individual estimates. I can also find these individual estimates in the file estimated individual parameters in the result folder. This file has one row per individual, and the values estimated by the EBE's task are in the columns ending with mode. Since I won't need the other columns, I will select just the IDs and modes and save the file on my desktop as pkparameters.txt. Then, using the same dataset, I have prepared this new project where I have loaded a PKPD model. But instead of estimating again the PK parameters, I would like to reuse the individual estimate that I already have in pkparameters.txt and estimate only the new PD parameters. To do this, I'm going to insert these PK parameters as new columns in the dataset. My PKPD dataset is currently loaded in the Data tab, but to add the PK parameters, I need to use the Data Formatting tab. I open the Data Formatting module and load the same dataset there. In initialization, I should just check that 2 columns have been recognized as ID and time. After validating the initialization, I can then move on directly to the subtab Additional Columns. In this tab, I can insert columns in my data, and I will use it to insert my PK parameters. This option to insert columns from another file can also be useful to add covariate values if you have covariates stored in a separate table. I click on Add an external file and I browse to select pkparameters.txt. Monolix now shows all the columns that have been found in the file except ID, which will be used to merge these new columns into the initial dataset. I click now on Preview, which brings me to the Data tab, where I can see my data after formatting has been applied. In this case, all the columns from pkparameters.txt have been added, and each individual parameter value has been duplicated on all lines corresponding to that individual. Monolix can handle only one line per individual in the additional columns inserted in the formatted dataset, so these columns cannot contain time-varying values. Note that my initial dataset has not been modified by Monolix. This new data is generated internally and will be generated again each time I load my project, thanks to the data formatting steps, and pass to the PK parameters file saved in the MLX1 file. The new columns are automatically tagged as regressor and can now be read in the structural model. After checking that the other columns are correctly tagged and accepting the data, I will edit the structural model to take them into account. I just need to add the line TLAG equals use equals regressor below the input line to indicate that the value of TLAG should be read from the first regressor column in the dataset instead of being estimated. I do the same for the other PK parameters, and I save and apply my model. At this point, Monolix warns me that if the regressor names used in the model are different than the regressor column names in the dataset, which is the case here, they will be matched by order. So I need to make sure that the parameter names here are in the same order as the columns in the dataset. I could also have used TLAG mode as a parameter name in the model, and the same for the other PK parameters, and in that case the order would not matter. I can now run the project. PK parameters will be read from the dataset for each individual, and only the PD parameters will be estimated. Have a nice day and see you next week.